Be honest. When you think about sickle cell disease, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Hey Pooks, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about something that's a huge part of my life, and that is sickle cell disease. But first, y'all, look at my nails. Aren't they so cute? I am not a press-on girly, but Nail Beast off a TikTok shop, they influence me. Now, before we get into this video, I just want y'all to know I have my notes here so I won't forget anything. I get a lot of questions like, oh, what is sickle cell disease? What triggers me? And I get like the questions that have misconceptions too. So we're going to squash all of that with this video. At its core, sickle cell disease is a genetic blood disorder, meaning that it's something that you're born with, not something that you catch. That's a common misconception that you catch sickle cell disease. No, let's squash that right there. Essentially, sickle cell disease is caused by a change, what we call a mutation, in the gene that creates hemoglobin. And hemoglobin is essentially a protein that is carried within the red blood cells and it carries oxygen throughout our body. So normally red blood cells are round, soft, and flexible, meaning that they are round like a donut and they can also maneuver their way through the teeniest, tiniest blood vessels with no problem at all, delivering oxygen to all of your organs. But with sickle cell disease, our red blood cells are now C-shaped or crescent shaped, sickled shaped, where it's harder for oxygen to deliver to all of our organs. And because they're now that C shape, they get rigid and sticky and they block up blood vessels, which causes vaso-occlusive crises. Now let's talk about inheritance because this is a very important part. Sickle cell follows a autosomal recessive pattern, meaning that both parents have to carry the trait in order for the child to be born with the disease. This is where my handy dandy Punnett square is going to come in place. If both parents have the trait, their child can be born either with sickle cell disease, with sickle cell trait, or neither. And there's also different types of genotypes. There's SS, which I have, the most severe and common genotype. There's SC, there's beta thalassemia, and there's many more that they're still discovering out there regarding sickle cell disease. So that's why we always say like there's no two of the same cases when it comes to sickle cell because sickle cell affects everybody differently. So what does sickle cell affect? The short answer, the entire body. I like to say where blood flows, sickle cell goes. So we have our sickle cells, they're blocking up our capillaries and our blood vessels, and they're also not providing enough oxygen to our tissues. So this eventually causes us to have the pain crises, inflammation, and down the line organ damage. And this becomes a cascading effect if you don't get the proper treatment. This can affect our kidneys, our heart, our lungs, our brain, you name it. This is more of a systemic condition. It's not just pain crises. It affects every organ in our body. When I was a little over 1 year old, I experienced splenomegaly. And if you don't know what splenomegaly is, it basically means the enlargement of your spleen. Now, your spleen functions to be your first responder. It fights infections for you and it also filters out the blood for you. But because my spleen wasn't working right, because sickle cells block blood flow to it, they had to remove my spleen. And this is a common thing that happens in children with sickle cell disease. So, what causes or what triggers sickle cell disease? Now, sickle cell can be triggered by many different factors. There's the lack of sleep, there's dehydration, there's fighting an infection or just being ill, there's extreme temperatures. Right now, we are going through the Texas winter storm, and I got my heated blanket on me. I got my space heater on me and our heater for the house is on. So we're trying to prevent a crisis right now. And there's also high altitude. They tell us if you're traveling long distances, make sure you're physically fit and make sure you also have an oxygen tank on you, just, for precautions. But for me personally, stress. Stress is my biggest trigger. That's why I do not play when it comes to stress. Like, I have strict boundaries just so people won't stress me out. If you are on my cellular device and you're stressing me out, block button is my best friend. Distance is my best friend because you're not finna put me in a hospital because you're stressing me out. So sickle cell has definitely affected my life in all areas. My social life, friendships, relationships, school, work, and even my mental health. So let's get into that. There are days where I look fine on the outside. Like, look at me right now, y'all. Don't I look good? But in all seriousness, I am right now having minor leg pain, but you can't tell that by just looking at me. Sickle cell is an invisible disease. So I could be looking fine on the outside, but in reality, my body is fighting for itself on the inside. And this impacts all of my relationships and my social life because of how people perceive me. A lot of people think that I avoid plans or avoid just talking to them on purpose, but in reality, there are times where it hurts so much to walk. Sometimes talking feels too much, and there are moments where I just want to be nonverbal because I feel like I can't talk, like I want to just breathe through the pain. I can't have full blown conversations. I can't be on the phone with you X amount of hours. I just want to be alone, get through this pain, and then I'm gonna hit you up. And being misunderstood like that can be very isolating, and that isolation could take an effect on my mental. Like it has a huge mental toll. And I feel like that goes for all warriors when I say like sickle cell brings a huge mental toll to us. And I honestly thank God for the friends that I have now. Like, even in my moments of silence when I just want to be to myself or quiet, sometimes they'll still come out to me. They'll come out to my house, or if I'm in a hospital, come out to the hospital. They won't talk, but they'll support. They'll bring food. They'll bring little candies or treats. They'll try to play games with me or keep me engaged so I could forget about my pain. And I thank God for them because they didn't have to do that. They weren't obligated to do that. They could have left at the first sign of, oh, she doesn't want to be nonverbal, like this is weird, da da da. But they stood beside me. They understood where I was coming from, even though they don't experience sickle cell. And these are God given friends. Relationships.
Ah, the ghetto! The ghetto! The ghetto!
That one cries a big one because you're navigating young adulthood and relationships. Now, factor in managing a chronic illness, managing sickle cell disease into that equation. Chai, it's a lot. It's a lot. You want a partner that is not ignorant. They want to learn about your condition. They want to, like, you know, be knowledgeable about it so they can help you out in the future. You want a partner that also does not carry the trait because eventually down the line, you guys see a life together. You see raising a family together. Now, I already have the disease. I don't want to have a partner that has the trait and we end up having children with the disease. I don't believe in passing down this disease to children because it's already tough out here. And then you also want to have a partner that's going to be there for you through the thick and thin, through everything. Like, thank God, thank God, thank God for my boyfriend. Like, he's seen the highs and lows and he didn't run. And I thank him for that because I've been with people that they've seen me in a crisis and it's not even a bad crisis, but just being hospitalized and you're like, you know what? I don't think I can do this. But my boyfriend, y'all, let me give this man his flowers. There was one time I was hospitalized and he had a whole full day of classes and I think exams. He was just tired. And mind you, we were about an hour and a half away from each other. He drove that distance after his exam to come to the hospital with me, spend the night with me at the hospital, and take care of me while I was there. He didn't have to do that because he already had a long day at school, but he did. So if you're a warrior, please, please, please pray for a partner like that. Pray for a partner that's going to be with you no matter what, no matter how difficult it gets with your condition. They're going to be there with you, helping you out. That man has been there for me on days where I could even be there for myself. That speaks a lot. I'm shocked every time I just think about that moment or these moments with my boyfriend because it's like I never experienced this kind of love outside of my family. Like, it's just, for me, it's crazy, but it's just God blessing me with someone that I needed. Love you, Pooks. On a different note, sickle cell has definitely affected my mindset and my mental health greatly. Living with sickle cell disease changed my brain chemistry. It's not only physical, but the pain can lead to depression, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion because your body's just always on high alert. And medical trauma is real. You have procedures back to back, you have repeated hospitalizations, and you have professionals that don't believe your pain. Like, why are you even there if you don't want to treat me? I literally have PTSD every time I pass up this one hospital in Houston. I was injured at this hospital and I went through all these proper steps to report the incident, but everyone covered their asses. The hospital covered their asses and they covered the nurse. I went to the charge nurse, I went to the patient liaison, they all covered their asses. I even went to take it to the Texas Board of Nursing. And it's been over a year since this happened. It's been a year and a week since it's happened. And Texas Board of Nursing still has not gotten back to me after the repeated calls and emails and letters. And I even garnered social media support too, and they still haven't done that thing. So now lawyers are involved. So the medical mistreatment is just crazy for us warriors. That experience alone just made me hate hospitals. And I'm not going to get into it now, but if y'all want a full story time, one day when I'm comfortable, I will release that. Then it's the feeling of being misunderstood or dismissed. Like, people assume that you're not in pain because of the way you look, right? Or they just assume that you're exaggerating and all of that. And I don't want to, I'm already in pain. I don't want to have to fight to prove my point. At that point, I just emotionally shut down. I just say, you know what, you got it. Sometimes I won't even get treatment or care, or sometimes I wouldn't even talk to that friend that made that comment, like, oh, are you sure you're sick or you're not feeling well? Because it's like, what the hell? Then it's the guilt and the grief that quietly shows up. When it comes to guilt, the guilt of canceling plans and trips and all of that with friends. There's one case I had with a friend. It was their birthday and I had just gotten discharged probably like 2 days before they were doing their birthday celebration. I had called them and told them, hey, like, I don't think I'll be able to make it because I'm not feeling well. Then they started coming at me like,
Oh, like, well, everybody else is canceling. Why don't you just come? Like, you're discharged. Like, you obviously feel better.
and I just felt bad that I pushed myself to go to this event and I ended up being sick again a few days after. No go. Then there's also the grief that you imagine for your life. Like, I'm 26 years old. I already thought like, oh, I'd be in medical school by now. I'll do this and I'll do that. Da, 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 da. But I feel like sickle cell kind of slowed down my process for everything I wanted to complete in my life. I'm not gonna say it ruined my life or anything, but it did cause some roadblocks. Like back in university, I had to take my final exams later, probably after the semester had ended, and I had to do amendments to my semester grades because I was hospitalized so much, and I had to even get the what do they call it? The disabilities center in my school. I forgot what they call it. The ADA office. Let me say the ADA office. I had to get the ADA office involved because sickle cell is a disability. I had to get them involved for them to even let me take my final exams, for me to even amend my grades and appeal my grades. And find that really crazy because why do I have to go through all these hoops? Then there's also the grief of the fallen warriors. I've met a lot of amazing people in my life that carry the same condition as me, and unfortunately, they're no more in person physically. They're always here with us spiritually. Amen. But yeah, they're here no more. And I just feel grief like, dang, like that survivor's guilt, I guess. And then, like, oh, they didn't get to accomplish this or that, or they were so young. Like, I feel that I don't want to say every day, but often. I feel it often. If you don't already know, I am a sickle cell advocate as well. I have been advocating on social media for the past 6 years, but I've been advocating since I was 8 years old. So I've been in the game for a long time. And advocacy fatigue is real. It's the constant having to explain your condition to other people, like politicians, for example, and you have to educate others. It's the constant fight for policy change, and it's just mentally draining. Policy change and you're not seeing the needle move too far, or it's even moving back because someone doesn't like this section of a bill or something. It's all mentally draining. I've been advocating for 18 years and I do want to say I am burned out a little bit, but hey, I just gotta push through and fight on. Sickle cell has definitely affected me financially, and y'all, these medical bills add up. The hospitalizations, the ER visits, the lab work we have to go do, the medications we have to go buy, the specialty appointments that we have to go do, because remember, this is a systemic condition. And sickle cell basically creates an overwhelming amount of medical debt. And this is with or without insurance, because remember, we still have to also pay the deductibles, we have to pay the um, co-pays, and our insurances, depending on what you have, they don't cover everything. So it's still out to get you. It is hard to hold a job that isn't remote for a sickle cell warrior because these jobs see us as unreliable. We're hospitalized constantly and we have to call out of work, we have to call out sick. Some people use a PTO, whatever they do. And jobs see this as us being unreliable, but no, we're really just sick. We're in the hospital. I had an experience with a job where I had to always send a medical band, my hospital bracelet, or even sending a picture of myself in the hospital with hooked up to the cannula and all because they didn't believe me. And I had issues with this specific job or that management at that job because they saw me as unreliable and they even thought I was faking. Y'all, these people even made a whole ass group chat and mentioned in the group chat.
Oh, your employee that's always sick is in the hospital again.
And they didn't know that I was also in the group chat, that they accidentally added me. Y'all, I was so upset that day, and that's probably another story time for another day, but I was so upset. We all had a stern talk because I wasn't having that. Things that's helping with my condition. Again, I do have HBSS, which is the most severe form of sickle cell disease. I always keep a water bottle on me, or I have my little Stanley if I go out everywhere I go because, again, dehydration causes a crisis. I don't want to be in crisis, so I make sure that I'm really hydrated. A lot of diet regulation has also helped. So, we want to have leafy greens so we have that folate vitamin in us. We want to reduce less of the greasy foods and fatty foods, all the junk food, and have more nutritious food for ourselves. I definitely have gotten better at managing and staying consistent with my medications and vitamins. Like, y'all, this is all of my meds. Minus one. Hold on. They see they falling, they toppling over. But these are my vitamins, my daily medications, even my pain medicine is in here too. And yeah, I've been really consistent with these. They help me not to be in as many crises as I should have. So that's definitely a big thing for me too. I also try to reduce my stress as much as I can control. So I block or I distance myself from any distractions because anything that stresses me out that I have control of, oh, I'm gonna control it by having that boundary or blocking you. I also like to keep myself warm. I always have my heated blanket or any type of blanket with me. If y'all see my car, I have a little kit with a blanket and everything, all my essentials needed if I were to go out and not have something. Oh, it's in my car. But yeah, I like to stay warm because I feel like me being cold, even if I'm like, let's say in a hospital ER, you know, them places are cold. I have a blanket on me just so my crisis won't get worse. I low key doom scroll so I could forget about my pain, or I would like to talk to somebody, so I'll call a friend or my boyfriend just to talk things out and for me to like not think so much of my pain. And also like journaling. I feel like talking to people helps too, but journaling to yourself and like writing down your thoughts and your feelings and how you process everything. It helps you process living with sickle cell disease. It helps you get through this hump of pain or you having a pain crisis. It just helps to release all that energy onto paper or your notes app just so you could not feel overwhelmed. You could have a release. I also make a list of priorities or a to-do list that's daily, weekly, and monthly, so I won't overwhelm myself with all the different tasks I have to do because y'all know I do a lot. But yeah, that's helped. And also my faith, like being into my word, going to a Bible based church, a church that appreciates me and all of that and keeps me grounded really does help because God has gotten me through a lot of things in this life. With sickle cell or like other things, like He's gotten me through it. So that's how I've gotten through that. I got into advocacy because living with sickle cell disease from a young age has taught me that surviving this condition is not the same thing as being supported with this condition. And I've been in many spaces where I felt misunderstood, where I've been talked about, where I've been mistreated. And this is not only in medical settings, this is all settings. And I really found my voice when I became an advocate because 10 years ago, I was a girly that did not want to talk about sickle cell disease. Not a lot of people knew about my condition. I didn't tell them I had this condition. My friends did not know I had this condition. Um, yeah, I was quiet to myself and everything. And now I am a big advocate that's getting all these different awards and accolades and titles from all these different organizations, these nonprofits, NGOs, and professional businesses because I used my voice. I bridged that gap between my experience and truly advocating for this condition. So, advocacy for me is really about turning survival into support and making sure that the next generation behind me, like my children, my children's children, and their children's children, they don't have to go through what I've gone through. That's why I advocate. And I'm really glad that I've been advocating because it brought me so many awesome people into my life, many different advocates and warriors into my life that I call my friend or my brother and sister. So, yeah, I just truly want to advocate for better communication, better care, and better compassion within the medical field and outside of the medical field. Just a societal thing. Like, we need compassion for these warriors. We need to have better communication and, of course, care for these warriors. I'm not sharing this video for sympathy, but I want this video to show understanding about this condition. I want my channel to, or this space to be a space where sickle cell is talked about honestly. So you're going to see the real and raw on my YouTube now too. You're going to see me in the hospital. You're going to see my clinic visits. You're going to see how sickle cell has a real life impact to other people. If you're living with sickle cell, I see you. If you're watching this video and you love someone with sickle cell disease, thank you for watching and thank you for learning. And if this video helped you understand sickle cell disease just a little bit, then I'm set out to do what I'm supposed to. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.